Alrighty. Where's that? Alrighty, Doc here from North America. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Had the wrong headphones set on. There we are. And let's see what's going on today. As you can see, just looking right up on the old screen here, Swiss franc is moving up, which means the dollar is moving up. And somewhat of a surprise that it was pushed down as much as it had been, but it really didn't go anywhere. I guess that's what it is. A surprise that it had a trend for 6-7 days where they were trying to push it down. I guess that's the surprise in my head. And when you really do look at this chart, especially the Chicago Quant, you can see it in both, but you can see it in both the Chicago Quant and the J Forex. But you see here, the dollar has been on an upwardly trend. And over here on the J Forex, we just have to bring it over a little bit further like that to match up to that low, this low. And the end result is it has been on an upwardly trend. And so, all this talk of, dollar collapsing, this, that, and the other thing, I think it goes right up there with the category of, one of the biggest things over the last, I guess you could say 72 hours with the weather, and everybody here who watches this or listens to this video knows Doc is, hey, 47, how you doing? Hey, Robin. And everybody here roughly knows Doc is part of the electric universe side of science, with the rebel scientists who are far ahead of mainstream scientists at this point when it comes to understanding cosmology and weather and so forth. So, I think that what has happened with this last burst of this Arctic down that goes all the way into Mexico, where they had freezing weather and below, and they've had inches of snow all the way down to Houston and so forth. I think that alone tells us why there is some nervousness about the cryptocurrencies. Imagine, all these things have to be electric. You have to have power, and there's a problem there. Like look at the windmill thing. Doc is not a big fan of nouveau science of weather and climate. I've been involved in it since the 70s, so I'm a little surprised that I see the repeats going on. But the end result is that no electricity, no cryptocurrency, and that's what it really comes down to. And so one thing for sure with the metals sector, and that is that if you have a ice age or a mini ice age for 3 or 4 days in your neighborhood, and there's no electricity for 3.5 million people, at least if you have your gold coins or your silver coins, things are a heck of a lot better, that's for sure. And so, basically, I think that's really what it, that's where it really comes down to in the end result. I think that's what, and you know what, I heard yesterday, of course you don't know, or maybe you do know, and I don't know, and that is that there's been talk of, I'm trying to think who it was. Was it Goldman or it was somebody? It was a brokerage house that had legitimacy in my head. I don't usually think that way with Goldman, so it probably wasn't Goldman. But they were talking about they're trying. I think it was. You know what I think it was? Might have been New York Mellon is trying to find a way of having physical Bitcoin and physical cryptos, so that you don't have to worry about electricity or no electricity, and that's a biggie too to deal with right there alone. Hey, all right, Canadian. Let's check out Canadian. After webinar, let's see. There is Canadian. Let's see. I think it tried to go into a daily buy there. Yes, yeah, it did. It closed into the daily buy right there, and I think it's on the fact check spreadsheet. Is it on there? Yeah. See that? 1 day in a daily buy, 1 week in a weekly sell. Kind of trapped in that neutral thing, Went into the sell here. Went down. Now they're trying to lift it up. We got into a daily buy yesterday. Let's give it a refresh. Canadian is being Canadian, With it, normally we think energy. When this is going up, we think energy is going down. Let's just take a quick look at some of the energy real quick. There's Bitcoin. Let's see, where are you? Like there, there's crude. Yeah, see, crude's moving up, and I guess that's just the squeeze because of the ice age that we just got down in all the way down to Mexico through the center of our country here. Let's see. Let's try. Also, I want to see natural gas. Natural gas just refuses to go into a daily buy. They must be shorting that so bad when it's not in the deliverable state. In other words, if they must be doing something. We're in a weekly buy, so you can't short it. But you can see here on the very short term, money doesn't want to jump in. It's really funny to see that. I guess it's just supply and demand. So anyway, there's the Canadian. Oil up 2% today. Yeah, it just, it's a, I want to go a little bit deeper. I know this is like everybody who needs their tin foil can put it on their head. We had the Carrington event in 1859. And luckily, at that point, I guess you could say or luckily or not luckily, maybe the other way around. Luckily, we weren't that electronically inclined at the time in 1859. Remember, Marconi had his, radio thing going on. Tesla was around talking ideas about communication. We weren't that far different. 1859 and 2021. Philosophically, theoretically, we're not that far different. Only difference really was that matter of fact, I think they laid the cable, which gave the name cable. A transatlantic communication line between England and the United States back then, even. Okay, so we had communications going on. It was the beginning of the communications. Faraday and Maxwell and they were putting science together with industry, and it was really starting to really rip, doing a great job, take off, rip right off, fly away. And so then we had the Carrington event that happened in 1859, which was a 30x, what do they call them, micronova from the sun. And it destroyed, all kinds of communications and electronics and of the times. It destroyed it all for 3 or 4 days, just wiped it all out, and it had to be all replaced. And so, we fast forward to 2021, and the Carrington event is expected to be even greater the next time around. They're looking for like 700x, not 30x. So it does leave, and no Faraday cage or no burying things in the ground is going to help too much with a 700x from the sun. So it does leave the doorway, in a little confusion there about the value of cryptos. Now I think cryptos are a great tool in a modern era, and I always have in the back of my head, since I'm very deeply involved in the electric universe. That's Dukascopy and what's his name, Birkeland and Alfane and our science leader now, Wall Thornhill. I'm sorry, and some some Nobel Prize winners and so forth. I think that we have to think a lot about the whole concept of electric money or synthetic asset, and at the same time we have to think about how to deal with energy, the grid, feeding it and then producing it. And I think that one size doesn't fit all, and so I think that's where we're trapped at the moment. I really do. I think we're really trapped. And then for those that are wondering what I'm talking about when I say the Carrington event, just look it up. 1859 Carrington event. And unfortunately for the United States, fortunately for the world, they weren't as sophisticated as we were in 1859. We had teletypes running all over the country. We had, communications going into homes, businesses more like it. Communications like a telephone. Basically, Alexander Graham Bell got things going about 20 years later with a voice communications. But, it says a lot, and probably one of the subconscious things that keeps the cryptocurrencies on the edge. At the same time, I just saw another one, Ballard or something like that, just came out. One of the Fed people came out and said, "Yeah, don't worry about the cryptos. They're not hurting anything. Let them grow. Let them be." So there's a lot of interesting points there. And this event that occurred in the center of the United States, and Doc is always talking about we're going into an ice age. I always mumble that here somewhere along the line, and then I don't go any deeper about it. Today we're going a little bit deeper because it's obvious that we need more adult supervision when it comes to understanding how to provide basic resources to homes and companies. In other words, electricity, power, energy. How do you really do that in an honest way, not in some type of unicorn hoping for way? And so that's where we are. All right. So we did the Canadian. We took a quick look at the oil. Let's jump over to euro. Let's see what the euro is doing this morning. But I think I've got my point across there. I would like all of you to look up the Carrington event. Carrington event, 1859. It was a 30x micro nova from our sun. We have, I'll leave it with this. Every 12,000 years or so, we have those events that start to build up and occur. We get macro novas. So it's something to think about. And there's an actual 6,000 year cycle also. All right, let's go over to the euro. And you can see the euro is moving back down again. We slipped into the daily sell there yesterday. We were flirting with the weekly buy in the euro, and it just seems to have given up there a little bit. Let's see, what else can we say about that? It's been in that weekly sell since this area here. It hasn't really gone too far. It goes down, dips a little bit, and comes back up again. I really feel like we're more in a channel overall. You can see it had an upwardly momentum. So that's pretty cool. To compare, against the dollar. It had gotten knocked down pretty bad there for a while. We were threatening. People always, look at it and go, "Oh my God, is it going to the par? The 100?" We haven't been near par in a while. Let's go over to J4X real quick and just take a quick look at. Oh, and there it is. There you can see we played with the weekly. You can see, it's trying to roll over again. And then let's take a look at it on J4X. Right there. And we'll just put a weekly up there. Like so. And it has been impressive, product has come off like the 106 or 112 area. And people do get very nervous when they see that. Matter of fact, you can see here back in 19, we were down to the 107s and 108 area, It's not bad. That's a 20% or 18% move up again, which is pretty cool. Or I guess 16% move up. So that's not bad. I mean, for a continent that has almost no direction, led by people who are not sure if they want capitalism or socialism or something in between, and they don't try to grow business, and they have enormous amounts of money invested into the different banks and companies to keep them afloat. So there's a lot of issues there, but again, currencies don't seem to follow fundamentals anymore. So I mean, if the continent looked the way it does today, 35 years ago or 30 years ago, and you asked me where do I think a euro unit would be, back then it was Deutschmarks, of course, and French francs and Swiss centime and British pound and Italian lira and so forth, and kronas out of the north, and now if you would ask me where those currencies would be, I would say like they would be in the toilet. That's where I would think they were, with the way the economy functions there. But then, the whole world now is in an enormous debt load. I got these old head exchange people and chairmans and so forth sending me stuff all the time, trying to make me realize that something's wrong with the financial markets. Like someone sent me over quotes for was it the 10-year bond that was just floated yesterday in Italy? I guess it was, what's today? Today's Wednesday, right? So I guess they might have floated bonds on Monday and Tuesday. and the 10-year, and it was 10 pips or 8 bips down from last sale. It's yielding like 0.47 in the 10-year, and they send me this stuff, and they go, how can this, how can this survive? How can they do this? This is ridiculous. It's got to be 2 or 3 or 4%. How can they do this at half a percentage point? They just don't get it. They just don't get that the world is upside down anymore. They just don't. They're still thinking like as if PEs mean something, interest rates mean something, inflation means something, CPI and PPI all mean something. They really, a lot of the old guys really have a hard time grasping this modern market, and this modern market is not. It's not. Ever since 2008, we're governed totally different. If you follow the little series that Janos from Dukascopy put up there, how to trade economic news, and then I think he enhanced it once after that, and then he gave up on it because it's like hitting your head against a wall. They don't really, the fundamentals are just not part of the decision-making process anymore. They say they are, the funds claim they are, but you can see that they're not. And Janos made it very clear, how it's been altered, So, I think that's what it really comes down to is that, you look at these currencies pairs now, and they're governed by the central banks and where they want to keep them. So, a Europe that's not really growing at all, has a currency that has appreciated like 16% over the last year and a half, which is pretty cool. I mean, you would think it would have gone 16% more down, not up. So, all right, there's the euro. Let's go over let's check out Mr. and Mrs. Cable. And there was a cable going across the Atlantic during the Carrington event. I think they had to replace it, actually. There was some problems. They probably didn't know it was the Carrington event that burned it up. And they had to do a second laying of it. And there is the cable. You can see that. This is just recoiling back. I don't want to call it the dead cat bounce, but I want to say that it's a bounce from the panic of Brexit. I think that's pretty much what it really comes down to. Let's put it up on Chicago Quant right there. You can see it's been holding up really well. It's line 13. 18 weeks in a weekly buy and 8 days and a daily buy. It's been a product that's been, just doing its best to climb. I mean, it has to climb. I mean, I don't see, it's not like they're being left out on an island, no pun intended, but they are back with the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth has 2 billion people. The Commonwealth is a big economic community. Now, it's not next door to each other like the way the European Union is, but, the European Union is like, what, 500 million people with an income of about $30,000 on average, or $31,000, something like that. And the Commonwealth is 2 billion or 1.5 billion, something like that, of people. From South Africa to Nigeria to Kenya to Jamaica to Belize, to Canada to Australia to New Zealand. I'm sure I'm leaving a few out of there too. I mean, there's a bunch of them. India, there's 1 billion people right there alone, with an income overall of an average of about 11 or 12, or maybe it's close to 13. I think it's like $13,000. Yeah, but when you look at, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, when you look at New Zealand and Canada, and you put maybe South Africa in there, and maybe Nigeria, and you pop it up a little bit more, and a few others, Jamaica, you probably move that. You might move 150 million people into the $35,000, $40,000 a year income level average. And so I kind of have to believe that the Commonwealth is a very good investment. You have to think that would be, not counting the United States is in there. You can throw the United States in there because we're always finding ways of having good treaties with Great Britain. It's our mother country, and so there's always that little hidden relationship. What do they call it? The special relationship. So that's probably why we're seeing a British pound, in my mind, should be going up in value, because now that they've got the shackles of Europe disconnected, things could be better. Not counting the fact that they still have the European Union to sell to because of location, location, location. You know, doesn't matter if you're the best pizza place and you're 2 blocks away. If you're the best pizza place, in the end result, people will walk 2 blocks versus in your own neighborhood. So that's where we stand there with the cable. Let's see. Let's take a look at the Turkish lira. Turkish lira, right there. And as you can see there, the Turkish lira, is just gliding down. It had an attempt to go into a buy here. Obviously, it was a red and a green. We've been in the weekly sell, so it's just been, a good steady action into the 6s. Wouldn't it be nice if it got into the 5s? That country could use that. It's been probably a very dramatic event seeing it go up to the 8.5s. So, Turkish lira looking pretty comfortable. It's been a really good product to chart. I mean, our math has been just great on it. It's been really fun. Our math is always about the same. It always seems to be 8.5 out of 10, no matter what decade and what product. It seems to always hold to that area. So the only time I've ever seen it not work right is when, like, Goldman Sachs was a private company. You could tell they were front-running their own product. Probably why I say tough things about them. And so that's where we are now. Let's see. So there's Turkish lira. We've done the Canadian. Let's take a look at NASCAD. See what they're up to there. There's NASCAD. And you can see breaking down a little bit there. Tried to get into the buy for a couple days, and now it's rolling over again. But it's in that weekly buy, so it doesn't really want to let go. And that's line 23. So line 23 is 16 weeks in a weekly buy. So we're seeing a little rolling over here at the moment. Nothing major. This is usually, we look at Canadian and we look at NASCAD for the energy sector. That's usually the insight we get out of those two. So that's what we're watching it for at the moment. A nice quiet day, unfortunately. I like it when we get more questions. I hope 44 has come back. I was hoping 44 would show up. 44 was so fiery and into it on Friday. And now I don't see a 44. I offered to help out to understand our charts more. Anybody have a question about the charts, just ask away. That's what the chat line's there for. All right. So now what we do is we normally drift over into the commodities. Let's take a look at that. There's the natural gas. We saw that. And it's trying to do its thing there. It just refuses to go into a daily buy. And obviously it's got to do with the time of the year. I know that I heard that Houston will be 70 degrees in the next 2 days. So life will be back to normal. But for 3.5 million people or so that had no electricity for a few days in sub-zero temperatures, not counting the cattle and so forth, you got to worry about that too. You got all those, healthy farms down there, thinking that they're going to have a mild winter, and then they get hit with an Arctic blast. And again, traders, this is the world we're in. The weather, we're moving towards an ice age, so and it's doesn't seem to be too far away of late. That's for sure. Every 11 years, the sun flips its electromagnetic field, and every 6 to 12,000 years, depending on which cycle, it has a macro nova event, and we've seen the first parts of it. Back in 1859, and it's gonna be. Let's put it this way, traders: be careful, be smart, be careful when it comes to everything. When it comes to being electronic and so forth. Where else are we? Okay, yeah. So there's natural gas. That's why it's fighting it. We can't go into a sell because we're in a weekly buy, but at the same time, we don't want to buy the short term, because it keeps on throwing sells out there. And that's where the action is right there. All right, now let's drift over to, oh, let me save that while I'm here. Save image. And let's move that off the board there. There we go. There we go. And then let's take a look at crude oil. As 47 said, it's, you know, it's up a couple percent here. You can see there it's been pushing and pushing. We're in a weekly buy now for, what is that? That's line 5. So we're 17, is that 17 or 12? That's 12. 12 weeks in a buy and 10 days in a buy. So obviously the weather people knew what to look for there. And we knew this was coming. I was given warnings through the electric universe, you know, the information I collect from the electric universe about 6-7 days ago, saying that electric prices were going to go flying up and fuel prices were going to go flying up. We're going to get hit with this blast. And sure enough, we got hit with it, that's for sure. And luckily, us here on the East Coast here, down in the southern side of it, below the Mason-Dixon line, have not had to deal with that, thank goodness. Let's see. So let's save that. And there's the crude oil. So now, last of the energies that we do look at, and you would think, obviously, because of the way you know, this weather can hurt some of the crops. Let's take a look at. I know farmers around here do get excited with snow. They think it really destroys a lot of the microbes in the soil. So they usually think that they're going to have a healthier crop when they get some snow like this. But let's take a look at. Well, I guess it's over in soybeans. We have to open up that. I'm not going to open it up unless someone asks for it. I'll just check it out later on. Let's see. So now let's take a look at the metals complex. Like I said, you know, if you buy gold and silver, and the end result is that you don't need your electronics to get it. And so there it is there. There's gold. It's still down a little bit from yesterday. And we're in a daily sell and we're in a weekly sell, and the pressure has been on. And gold itself just doesn't seem to be getting any legs. Now, we've seen, let's put silver up there. And there's silver. Silver doing the same exact thing, except for it's trying to get into a buy. And if this was plus here, let's just refresh that. If that was plus, that would put us into a daily buy. Oh, there we go. We are starting to flirt with the daily buy there with the silver. Right there. So we can actually put it down on below. Right now it's trying to do that. Go into the buy today. Cool. We keep on expecting, you know, we see all these headlines like, you know, rip your face off rally in silver. We keep on seeing that. We just don't, it's not happening. That's all. And then, oh, and let me do the gold. I don't think I did the gold. Yeah, rip your face off rally in silver. I keep on seeing that. They keep on projecting that for like the last 5 or 6 days also. But it just doesn't seem to happen. And then let's go to platinum, because I saw it go into, I think it went into a daily sell. No, almost did. Last night we thought it went into the sell. Let me just reload that to see if it did or did not. No, it did not. But today it is pressuring in. Now, last night they were projecting it into a daily sell, and that's why I had the red line there, but obviously not today. Now, the spread has gotten down to 506. Right now you can see gold is trading at, platinum's trading at 1249, and let's put it up on J4X, the gold, and see what the spread looks like. The spot is trading at parity with the futures at the moment. London and New York are at parity. So 17, let's see, 1250 minus that. Yeah, so it's at 42 now. So the platinum spread bounced off of 516, and has jumped up to 542 at the moment. So there's some pressure on the spread there. We call that the Yellen spread. And so far, that's the first bounce, and it looks like you know, we're starting to play with some weakness here. We'll see how that goes, or if they start reaching for this again. It was probably a very, you know, this mini little 3-day ice age we had in the center of the country. In some places, it was a little bit more pronounced. Probably has a lot of things shaken up at the moment. All right. Let's save that. There we go. Now let's take a look at copper. Robin and I were talking about this last week, and the idea that in a you know a what do they call those things? It's not science. What is it? It's called alternative. No, renewable resources. Renewable resources. I don't know what the hell that is. What's a renewable resource? Anybody can tell me that? I don't know what a renewable resource is. You use the energy, it's gone to some other entity. Remember, energy cannot be created or destroyed, so you can't renew it. Let's see. It just converts. So there is copper, and copper is holding up really well. And Robin said it best last week, and that was that the armatures are made of copper, and you can't have electrical motors and so forth without copper. And so the pressure here is, I guess silver people probably think the same thing. Like, you can't have the electronic age without silver. And so, here we are with the copper taking off really well, but we can't get the silver to get moving. And that's because I believe, and I say this all the time, is that the central banks use silver and gold as an alternative to currency. And because they do that, they control where it's at. And so they're really good at that. They can create assets and buy or sell something and just pound the daylights out of it. So if they want something to go up, they can drive it up, like the equity market, which helps the retirees and keeps interest rates low for governments for borrowing, that type of thing, and then vice versa. If they want the metals to be cheap, they can find ways of selling it down and putting pressure on it. And not much you can do about stopping it, since they have as much money as they want and they're government backed. It's not like they're a private company in the sense of, they're going to run out of money. They can just keep on printing and just put it in another hidden portfolio. We've already heard those stories. So you can see here, copper seems to be running up for that physical delivery to create electrical motors and so forth. And at the same time, a silver can't seem to get out of its own way. You would think that, okay, well, there's more computers and there's more electronics. Why isn't this thing flying? Why doesn't it take off and just go to the moon? And probably the best answer of it all is the central banks don't want it to. Just as the central banks have been saying of late, cryptocurrencies, fine, they're not hurting anybody. Just let them be. Like I've said before, you'll know when the central banks are concerned about them. They'll stop them. All of a sudden there'll be investigations by the CFTC and the Securities Exchange Commission, and they'll come down with a hammer on them when they want to. Right now, they have no reason to. Matter of fact, in many ways, we don't know how much. I mean, I can say this: we know the central banks can pretty much follow almost all assets. And so money being put into cryptocurrencies, we don't know how much the central banks can monitor that or not. I say they can. I say that they can monitor that. And so what they're doing is they're letting the cryptos grow solely just to see where assets are. It's like fishing, They throw the fishing line in there, they want to see where the fish are. And so that is the metals complex. Now let's drift over to the stock indices. There's the NAS. The NAS held up again in a buy, looking very firm. Last night they had sent it down. It was down fairly well, nothing major. You can see the low on it is 13,694, and right now we are 50 points higher. And then let's save that and Q right there. And then we'll take a look at the S&P 500. And if anybody wants to see a particular currency or anything, just give a shout out. And then there's the S&P 500. It too was flirting with a sell there last night, and it has rebounded back nicely. That's like unchanged, you know. And you can see the low last night there was 913. And here we are 15 points higher, 16 points higher. Then we take a look at this. This is in a sell and doesn't seem to want to let go, but it's in the weekly buy still at the same time. So it's like that natural gas thing, kind of trapped in a neutral. And the pressure seems to be holding on. I guess the biggest question is, would it take out these tops? It's hard to say. I supposedly the amount of equity laying around trying to find a place to go says to me it's going to be very hard for these things to sell down. And then right there, I think we've seen our selling for the time being. So then here we are with the Dow. Now the Dow has been in a sell for the last couple of days, and let's give it a refresh. The good old Dow Jones Industrial Average, and you can see here it's flirting with a daily buy today with a weekly buy. So it's joining in, and it's only the Russell, which, you know, the Russell is has taken that position of the old NASDAQ, you know, the weakest companies, the least capitalized companies, the ones that have the least growth, that have potential growth, but, you know, they're still not there. And so that's where we're seeing the way the sectors move around here. So S&P and Dow Jones, you know, are not marching as well as they used to together, solely because the Dow Jones and you know is now a combination of things, and it's, you know, it's a divisor type index, not a cap weighted one, or it would march really well right along with the S&P. And the same thing with the NASDAQ 100, or for those on Dukascopy, the Tech 100 on the J4X. The Tech 100 is the let's show you that is the NASDAQ 100 right there. So that's the action we're seeing when it comes to the stock indices. Again, you know, the world is starved, as I answer those guys from the night before and so forth. You know, or morning. I guess they send me emails at like 3 and 4 in the morning. They're awake. They're 85 and 90 years old, so 90 some odd years old. Some of them are pretty old guys. But I was the kid back in those days. I was the kid. I was young. And so, you know, what you have is you have markets trying to find places to invest. And it's very hard when you have, we mentioned this here a lot, and that is there's 18 trillion, not billion or million, but 18 trillion parked in negative yield. That's a lot of money. $18 trillion. So, and there's the Tech 100. And then let me just show it to you again here on Chicago Quant. Right there, that's the NASDAQ 100. That's what it is. And you can see it's tried to perk up again. And we'll see how much weakness they put into it if they sell this down again. I'll show you what is concerning money at the moment. And we usually used to like to call it hot money. Money looking for a place to invest. Hot money needs to go somewhere. And what we're seeing right now is this. We're seeing the 10-year feeling some pressure. And that really has some of them a little concerned. And has equities concerned. You can see it right there. It's lower today than it was yesterday. We're in a weekly sell for a few weeks, and we're seeing a yield of, I think it's, was it 1.3% on the 10-year now, and then the 30-year. This is the U.S. bonds. That's what I was talking about earlier. They'd floated the Italian one, and someone was like saying to me, "Oh God, you know, how can they do that at 0.4 or 0.37? You know, it should be like, you know, a buck and a half, $2. How do they quote lower? How do they get lower rates than American rates? You know, that type of thing." And then here is the 30-year. This thing's yielding over 2% now. right there. There we go. And you can see the pressure on that too. Daily sell, weekly sell. That has them a little disturbed. And I think on J4X does have it. You can see we're at some lows here, for like the last year. Now let's widen that for a second. Let's go over to J4X, get a better visual of it all. Because J4X does have the bond, not the boon. I bet they have the boon too, but where is the 10-year? Here it is. Now that must be the 30-year. 164. See that? Yeah. So last time it was here was in 2019. They like to call these the bond vigilantes, but I'm not so sure there's that many vigilantes at the moment. So you can see how it climbed all the way up. That's really, when this goes up, interest rates are dropping, traders. So interest rates were dropping all the way up to here, then they were rising again and dropped even more. Then they rose a little and then dropped again. And now we've broken that low here, like so, and we're going after this top right here, which probably has money nervous. And that's what they refer to as bond vigilantes. And a lot of money, if there's anything money follows, it is going to be the bonds. The bonds are like the smoke detector in a house. The bonds are, if bonds are being sold, the top bond in the world is being sold, then there's concern. And that's why there was a feeling that, I guess, I'm still a little confused about why they thought the dollar was going to get crushed. I guess they were anticipating, you would think that as the yield goes up, dollars would be bought, not sold. So, a little confused why and where. I didn't really get a good story. When people said they thought the dollar was going down, no one could actually say why they thought the dollar was going down. I heard some examples like, oh, well, the cryptocurrencies are really coming to life. It's like, no. Cryptocurrencies would have to be Jack and the Beanstalk size. It would have to be enormous right now. There isn't that enormity to the cryptocurrencies at the moment. The cryptos are very small. They're probably the size of lumber contracts. I don't know. They don't really trade that much of those products. They're starting to get involved. Money is pouring into them, and it's been pouring into them, but it's kind of more on the Reddit Robinhood way more than it is the Bank of New York Mellon way. It's not exactly like they're sucking up everything in sight. So we saw we saw Guggenheim, step up and buy $600 million worth, and we've seen a couple others do the same thing. $1 billion here or half $1 billion there, but we're not seeing. You got to imagine this bond right here. They probably trade, I don't know, $50 billion a day in this thing. When you start seeing $50 billion a day in trading in Bitcoin, then you got some action. I don't think all the cryptos put together reflect more than, I don't know, $500 million a day if they're lucky. So, this one bond trades probably like $50 billion a day. Just this one bond. And then we're not even looking at the 10-year, and we're not even looking at the Bund out of Germany. We're not even looking at the what do they call it in London again? They have a name for their bonds. The gilts. We're not even seeing that action. So, until we see that type of size, there's not much to be concerned about when it comes to the cryptos as something that's interfering with the dollar. And so pretty much the only thing I've been able to see when people thought that the dollar was going to go down was they kept on saying because of the cryptos. And I'm thinking to myself, because of the cryptos? I don't get it. I don't see that. So that's where we are. Right now, and then I guess you could say is that I bet Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptos trade, I don't know, 3% if they're lucky, or 5% of all currencies traded a day. I mean, really, it's as bad as the yuan probably. The Chinese yuan that trades 2% a day of currency in the world. So I mean, I'm not even sure if it could be worse than that. We could be seeing all the cryptos combined together may trade under 2% a day. So I think I read something and we talked about it here. We saw something where it was competing with the Chinese yuan. The amount of volume traded every day. So it could be as low as 2%. So I'm not really sure what is laying the groundwork for people to think that the dollar is going to be crushed. All I see is, and let's go back to like the Swiss saltine. The Swiss, as far as I'm concerned, is a really good example of looking at the dollar right there. And when you look at it overall, the dollar's been going down, no doubt about it. And probably we jump over to J4X, it's probably even a better example. Right there. There we are. And it's a weekly chart. Here it comes. And when you really scrunch it up to 2015, it looks more like a big sideways channel. So the dollar really overall since 2012 is at the bottom end of its range. There's the lows right there. Played with that now. So, I mean, what we're looking at really is it's at the bottom end of its range. Now, let's go to a monthly and see if we can see anything more insightful. Remember, as we get past 2008, I'm always concerned that we're not comparing apples and oranges. So, in other words, here the dollar was going down until 2009, right? And here, 2010. What's that? That is 2011. Okay. And then dollar went up from that point, and now it's starting to challenge it again. So dollar was going down was being sold off when looking through the eyes of the Swiss franc. Let's take a look at the euro the same way. I think the euro was invented back then too, wasn't it? I guess let's do euro and then we'll jump over and look at a cable. Right there. Now, I guess the euro started in 03, something like that. And it's pretty much, it had some nice excitement here. And you got lower highs. So the dollar was strong here. You had a strong dollar. Because, they ran it up to 2008. And then the world came to an end. That financial market changed. In other words, our ideas of fundamentals and using, CPI and PPI inflation and retail sales, which is coming out in another 15 minutes or something like that, or 10 minutes, things like that, which had great influence on the way what you did with currencies and what you did with stocks and so forth has kind of diminished. And as you can see here, the dollar was very strong against the euro, enormously strong. Let's see what it looked like against the cable over that same time period. Let's see, right there. Same situation here. The cable went down against the dollar, and it's trying to bottom in here. But overall, I'm not really seeing. I don't see the world coming to an end on the dollar. That's the thing, is I just don't see that yet. I have not seen. Oh, here we go. Hey, George, how you doing? Do you feel like the metals are going to break out someday soon? I've always I say this a lot when people are looking for the metals. The only thing we're seeing now is the more fundamental side of it. Copper's breaking out, doing a pretty good job. Because Robin was saying about it, and we wrote about it. you need copper to make electric motors. Platinum, we feel that it's not going to be used the same way financially as it was under this Fed chairman. Now that Mrs. Yellen's in there, it's going to be, it's lost 50% of its spread against the gold. In other words, platinum has gained almost 50% since we started talking about that spread. It made almost $500 per spread, which is really cool. I don't see metals taking off because they're used as a currency, and as we've said here before, they're the central banks and the treasuries of these countries have a way of interpreting, especially the U.S. Treasury, interpreting if a currency is being manipulated or not. And they actually put a report out every 6 months or so if something's being manipulated. And so, and when they're manipulated, they actually get grief about it, I guess. I mean, they give whoever's manipulating their currency some grief. So it's really hard to see a gold or a silver take off. I mean, when we were all guns blazing bullish on silver, all we could do is get it to $30. I mean, we saw gold make all-time highs, and that was more of a combination of a weakening dollar than it was the demand of gold making new all-time highs in dollars. So, whereas in other countries, we talked about it here, and I think I've talked to you about it too, and that is that in other countries, their currency has been making all-time highs against gold, whereas here in the States, it has not. Which is a very confusing thing for a lot of people. You got to take in consideration the strength of a currency, the interest rates, inflation. Some of the fundamentals do seem to have some validity, but overall, it's pretty much a tool of the central bank at this point. I mean, you see everybody write articles about it, about the idea that they're going to, I've been seeing these articles over and over for weeks now. They're going to rip the face off of the SLV in London, the silver. I mean, it's going to be a rip your face off rally. Well, you have to, who controls these metals? It's the central banks. And so are they really going to allow the metals to go roaring? The most I think we're going to see is platinum's going to be stronger than what it has been. And so you can be long platinum and short gold if you want to play a metals play. That's the only one I see. I don't see anything else after that. And copper. If you want electrical motors and you want to be more dynamic, to an electric industrial base, you got to be a big fan of copper. That's another thing too. So yeah, I see them all over on YouTube on silver. Yeah, I know. And there's no real clarity why they think that it's going to go ripping up, besides supposedly the short position in physical. I know Robin buys coins. We have metal around here too. And when you look at the price of gold or silver in the exchange level, trading in contracts and so forth, and then you go to try to buy it from a dealer, physical. When you try to take delivery of this stuff, it's really hard. It's much more expensive. I mean, silver seems to be trading in the 30s when you're trying to buy it. Most of the time out at flea markets and collectible places, they're not exactly giving it away. And they're not following those numbers. They're discounting it. They're discounting the numbers at the exchanges, and they're inflating the delivery of real stuff. So you go to try to buy some silver somewhere, physical, you're not going to get it at 20. Let's go to silver real quick. Where's silver right now? And let's put a day chart up there. So your silver is trading at basically $27 an ounce. You can try to go buy that physically somewhere, and more than likely they're going to be offered to you at $35 an ounce. There's going to be like an $8 premium on it. Same thing with physical gold. It gets tough like that. So, this the YouTubes and all this stuff about dollar crashing and metals going through the roof. If I'm gonna bet on anything, I go with cryptos. And then you got the electrical problem. Lose your grid, you lose your coin. They need a secondary. They need to have a certificate. They really do. They need to have some type of. They call it what is it? New York Mellon calls it. What is it? The depository. They want to house something. They want something housed, and so it's going to be a real challenge to you buy a crypto through them, and they're going to give you a certificate that says that you own that, and at the same time you have like the passwords for it or something like that, I guess. And there must be some type of joint thing going on there, and so then there's some type of protection physically, and that's what the challenge is right now, to understand the physical delivery. Remember, traders, we do quantitative analysis here, and with it, we look at the fundamentals, the physical fundamental execution of it at the same time. The quantitative gives us, it's a primer. Quantitative analysis gives us direction, tells us how to understand why it's going some direction, or where it's going. And so then you have the mechanics of it after that. How do you house it? Where do you park it? How do you account for it? There's all those mechanics at the same time. And so that's why I notice some people will watch our webinars and they'll be like, wow, why is politics involved in this? Or why is that? It's because of these things. You've got to house these things. And what gives the power to that? Obviously the politics. The Securities Exchange Commission and the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. Governments give the politics to how you house these things and how you legitimize them. Trust me, if they don't want them, the governments will find ways very easily to shut it down in a heartbeat. And just like the people who bid up GameStop and all the way up to almost like $483, and now it's trading at, I don't know, 50, 60 bucks a share again, or 40 bucks a share. There's a value, and there might be short-term squeezes, but overall there's a physical reality, and there always is a physical reality. And so that's what quantitative analysis does. It shows us the true direction of that physical reality. And then what we try to do there is try to understand the rest of the mechanics. All right, this is Doc from North America. It is Happy to Hump Day already, because remember, it was a 4-day work week here in the States. So we will catch you all tomorrow, same time, same channel. Happy trails to you. Until we meet again. Happy trails to you, to all our cyber friends. Ta-ta for now.